up a dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild and variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild and variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, monsters. We are live here today on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, and we have a great guest with us here today from Small Town Monsters. We will have Aleksandar Petakov on the show today. It's going to be a great time. But first, guys, I want to remind you, if you guys want to come out and meet the CAPS team in person, we are going to be at Squonkapalooza, August 10th in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. We are bringing along the Haydn Adventure exhibit. So guys, if you will miss that up in Upper Michigan and want to see it in person, it is a whole big display talking about 10 years of Bigfoot evidence and documentation on an 80-acre private property in Upper Michigan. We are bringing that all the way out to Pennsylvania. Speaking at this convention, there's a lot of great people, including myself, Ron Murphy, Daniel Benoit, and all the other people listed there. So come on out if you are in the Pennsylvania area. We are also coming to CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky in November. And tonight, if you are in Wisconsin, I will be at the Brookfield Public Library, Brookfield, tonight at 7 p.m. talking about debunking the paranormal at the Gainers Tavern. And then this Thursday, I'll be at the Belleville, Wisconsin Library talking about cryptozoology. You can get all that information and more at wisconsincaps.com. Click on the public events page. Awesome. If you guys want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys. It is a warm one. It is going to be a warm one here in the Midwest, and myself and my guest has turned off his air conditioner so that he can have nice, good audio for you today. So hopefully we all appreciate this because it's a warm one here. Wisconsin is already 84 and climbing today, and that's all I got to say. It's a warm day. Today we have another amazing guy from Small Town Monsters family on. Aleksandar Petakov is a documentary filmmaker, an outdoorsman, and an avid adventurer, consistently searching for the unknown. Traveling across North America and the world, Aleksandar has looked into various cryptozoological creatures like Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, the Lake Champlain Monster, and the mystery of big cats, as well as other bizarre phenomenon and mysterious places like the Bridgewater Triangle, and done many documentaries on the topics and more. He is a Small Town Monsters crew member and has searched far and wide for Sasquatch in Bigfoot Beyond the Trail documentary series on YouTube, which has amassed over 16 million collective views on the platform. And if you guys want, the link to that is in the show notes, as well as all of his other work. Make sure you guys check that out. Please welcome to the show, Aleksandar Petakov. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate the awesome intro there. Thank you.
Oh man, it is a pleasure. It's always fun talking to you guys from Small Town Monsters and that, because you guys just do so much, always on the road and always working on something new. And it's just a pleasure to get the time to chat with you guys. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. There's always something going on. That is, I don't think it's ever rung more true than now. We have so many of us, and because a lot of people are doing different things. Like I do my own projects. We have other people, Seth and others, that are working on their own individual projects. And occasionally, a few times a year, we come together and work on projects together. But it's usually kind of everyone's in their own corner. People on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, down South, Midwest. It's a big kind of collective group, but everyone's kind of doing their own stuff. So it's really cool. But yeah, I'm always up to something as well. So there's always something going on.
Absolutely. Speaking of things going on, you guys have a big event. The second annual Monsterfest is coming up. You want to tell everyone about it?
Yeah, for sure. So Monsterfest was an event that we started last year. You were there at the first one, actually. That's where I met you for the first time in person. Mm-hmm. I think I'd been on your show previously, I believe, at some point before you were here on Untold, and then I got to meet you at the event. But Monsterfest, it's kind of just a fun event. It's not like a traditional conference where you just have speakers and a few vendors. It's more of like different things going on. So we wanted to do something a little differently, where you have a few speakers. So we have people like Ken Gearhart and Paul Bartholomew and some others. But then we also have just people that are just visiting as guests, people like Lyle Blackburn, Shannon LeGros, some of the others you see there listed they're not speaking, they're just there to hang out. So you get a chance to interact with them. We also have live podcast recordings like Astonishing Legends, workshops. We're going to have Mike Ann doing a workshop on tips and tricks in the field, and he has a law enforcement background. He's a good buddy of mine, so he's going to do some awesome stuff. We've also got Wild and Weird West Virginia, Ron and Joe. That's a tough one to say 5 times fast. They're going to be doing a workshop. So we have simultaneously, you have podcasts being recorded as you have speakers, you have workshops. So it's like, if you don't want to go just to a conference and see people speak and then hang out at the vendor table a little bit and then have to go back to another speaker, you can choose what you want to do. You want to go see a podcast? Go ahead. So there's multiple things going on. So it's more of like a multifaceted event. Again, we did the first event last year, and this is just the second event this year. And I have a few tidbits of information I was given because I would never remember this stuff on my own. But this year we have new stuff like the workshops, of course. We've got new guests. There's going to be food trucks as well. The event is family friendly for kids under 12. Or sorry, it's not, it's family friendly for any kids, but kids under 12 get in free. Sorry, I misread that.
Yeah.
And admission gets you access to everything. There's no additional charges for speakers or workshops or anything like that. You just get your ticket, and then, you, like I said, you can pick whatever you want to do, however you want to spend your time. Totally cool. Pre-sale tickets are available for $22.50. So if you want to get those now and make sure you have your ticket, save a few bucks. At the door, they're $25. So I guess a little bit of an incentive to get your ticket online now. And then Friday night, we have a movie premiere going on. That is a separate ticket. So if you want to come for that, that's a different kind of event, but it's sort of lumped in. But the main event for Monsterfest is June 29th, which is a Saturday in Canton, Ohio. As you can see, that awesome poster there, so many different people, myself, all the Small Town Monsters crew will be there as well. So not just the people here, tons of incredible vendors, a lot of people that I'm sure, Barnaby, you know, going to a lot of these events, a lot of familiar faces. Last year was just an incredible time. And I may be biased, but it was one of my favorite events I've ever done. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's Monsterfest too. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on. And again, it's not your traditional kind of paranormal or cryptid event. It's a fusion of a lot of different things. So that's what we wanted to keep it kind of unique. So no two people maybe have the same experience. You know, one can spend half their day listening to podcasts and speakers. The other one can just hang out, do a workshop, and ultimately kind of choose what they want to do.
Very cool. And what are you going to be doing at Small Town Monsters Fest?
So I'm just going to kind of be hanging out. That's what we, as the crew, we're basically just hanging out. Last year we had a little table, and we have kind of like a poster, one of those big backdrop things where you can take pictures. So we were just hanging out, taking pictures, chatting with people. It was super cool for me. I got to meet people that have been following our work for a while, people that are fans. Just really awesome to interact with folks. I even got to meet people that I've ended up linking up with later on for videos. And one guy even came from Alaska last year, which was really awesome. And I got to go out with him in Alaska when I went up there right after Monsterfest last year. So I'll just be hanging out. So you can see me in my hat. I'll just be hanging around and taking questions and just having a blast. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be up to.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I can't make it out there this year, unfortunately, but I know that last year we had a lot of fun. It was a great event, very well put together, very well organized, very, very good for especially your first year. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from, a group that, like you said, is doing a million things at once all across the world, basically. So.
And an event on top of everything. Yeah. And all full credit goes to Courtney and some of the other team for putting it together. Myself and a bunch of the other filmmaker guys who just kind of show up and they sort of tell us where to go. You go here, you do this, help carry this. But Courtney really puts it together. She does a fantastic job. And I don't think without that organization, she basically helps Small Town Monsters stay afloat. She's like extraordinaire person, MVP for sure, because, we're the ones off running into the woods, looking and doing filmmaking and all that kind of stuff. And she keeps it all organized and put together. So she organizes Monsterfest as well, does a great job. And we were super excited to see the excitement last year for the event and how awesome it turned out. So we're expecting a pretty cool event this year as well.
Very cool. Well, speaking of last year's event, you stopped by my booth and you made a purchase. And you promised me that the next time we spoke, there would be an update on this purchase.
Yes.
So you were on your way up to Alaska to do some Bigfooting and purchased a couple little ghost balls.
I think I do. I have them in my little box right there. You can kind of see it. That's sort of my evidence kit or my gear and stuff. And I think I still have both of them in there. Yeah. I didn't lose them, which is good.
Well, that means Bigfoot didn't take them either. So
yes, unfortunately. So I tried to use it a little bit in Alaska. We were trying to figure out a way to make it work, maybe tying it into a tree or something like that. And it didn't seem like it was something that was going to be practical. And it was raining the entire time. So they were just glowing the entire time. They were basically put up. And it's because we were in a rainforest. We were at an area A. We had we were there for 2 weeks and we basically had like 2.5 days of sunlight. Everything else was rain and miserable conditions. So if there were calmer conditions, maybe I could have used it. But I'd like to use them again in the future, maybe a more controlled kind of environment, see if anything, maybe he's interested. But I haven't had really a situation kind of similar to that Area A stuff. So we'll have to see. But it's a cool thing. And I know you kind of said they're I think it's like a cat toy. If I'm not
they're a
mistaken.
cat toy. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I have to try them out on my cats. I think they might be interested in that.
So what was your theory behind it to try and attract Bigfoot, like with the
I don't
lights?
know. Yeah, I thought maybe just it would be something interesting to have deployed. Maybe hang it in like a tree, see if something sets it off. You might be able to see it from a distance, say, okay, maybe something set it off. Whether or not that's Sasquatch or not, obviously you don't know. It could be any kind of creature, but it might give you an indication of, hey, something's going on. But they're pretty easily triggered with like rain and even some wind. So I would have to think of a better way to kind of deploy them. But I'm not sure. Do you guys use them for cryptid stuff or mostly other kind of paranormal stuff?
Paranormal. Yeah, we use them for paranormal. The fact that they're easily triggered when you let them sit somewhere is a very low energy way for things to communicate with yes or no answers. So
right. And that would be an interesting way of maybe just putting them somewhere stationary, because then the idea again would be, oh, you see, maybe it starts glowing. But I thought maybe hanging them. I don't know. I kind of thought of some different ideas, but I didn't end up really utilizing them, I guess, as I probably should have. I probably should just put them in the spot that was maybe visible, because you never know. Maybe it's really dark and you're looking in the woods and you see all of a sudden this little glowing thing moving around. So you got to figure out what took it. Was it a bird? Is it a bear? Is it a Bigfoot? What is it going on? So that's something I think I'll have to experiment with in the future.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, if you put them in a completely dark room and they're sitting on the floor or something, they light up the whole room.
That's amazing.
So you can definitely see them for quite a ways. So
I'll definitely have to give that a try.
Yeah, awesome. So you went up to Alaska. This is where we left off last time. So you were going up to Alaska. What else have you done? What happened in Alaska? What else have you done since? And where can people watch those specific things?
Oh my gosh! So I feel like that was exactly a year ago, right? Because a year ago I was in Alaska, and I feel like there's been so much that's happened since then. Well, for that Alaska trip, that was really awesome. I drove up. So literally right after Monsterfest, when we last met, I drove straight up there. We spent some time and actually got turned into a film called The Alaska Bigfoot Highway, which was our journey through northern Canada into Alaska. And there was a lot of funny Bigfoot coincidences that happened. We were going to a Bigfoot event. There was an event we were showing some films at called the Boreal Bigfoot Expo up there in Fairbanks. And along the way, I kept running into people with stories along the Alaska Highway, which goes through this incredibly remote wilderness. I mean, it's some of the most beautiful habitat in North America and extremely pristine. And I noticed looking at maps, whether it was the Bigfoot Mapping Project or the BFRO, or even there's a researcher named Carrie Kilmurray out of Canada. She has a Canada sightings map. A lot of the sightings in that part of northern British Columbia, the Yukon, and into Alaska were along the Alaska Highway. People driving up. And so the Alaska Highway is a 1,400-mile highway that goes from Dawson Creek, British Columbia to Delta Junction, Alaska. So it's basically the main route to drive up to Alaska from. You'd have to drive into Canada from the lower 48, and then you drive the Alaska Highway. But that habitat, you see so many different types of wildlife along the road. I mean, we saw tons of black bear, grizzly bear, moose, elk, caribou, all kinds of critters along that highway, bison, woodland bison. So you see a lot of wildlife. So it's no surprise that that's really remote, great habitat that has a history of kind of Sasquatch reports, and that's where they're seen along the road. A lot of the typical road crossing sightings, people seeing them in their campers. A lot of people will just camp there along the side of the road. So that was a really interesting journey. But as we kept going up, we'd stop in a little town and I'd talk to people and they'd be like, oh, you should talk to this guy, Red Grossinger. He wrote a book about Bigfoot in the Yukon. Well, he was going to be a speaker at the event we were literally driving to. So then I got to interview Red at the event, and we hit the U.S. border with Alaska and Canada. And the border guys asking me, hey, what are you doing up here in Alaska? I'm like, I'm up here for a month. I'm going to be doing a bunch of films, looking for Bigfoot, some of that kind of stuff. He's like, do you know a guy? And he told me the guy's name, and it turns out he was going to be a speaker as well at the event. So it was like I got to interview him as well and put them both in the documentary. And so that was not intended. I didn't know it was going to be turned into a film. I thought this was just going to be like a montage or a sequence. Here's my drive on the Alaska Highway to get to Alaska. And that was going to be part of basically an Alaskan film just about Alaska. And here's the journey up. But that turned into an entire film of its own, just based off all the scenery and everything and the coincidental nature of it, and sharing some of the stories that I was told from along that journey, and including interviewing the guys there who were kind of along the way, I kept running into them, and I was going to be at the event. So it was fun. And while I was up in Alaska, I also made a film, Interior Bigfoot, or Interior Alaska Tales, which is about various stories. We drove basically almost into the geographic center of Alaska, middle of nowhere. Mosquitoes the size of quarters eating you every 2 seconds. I mean, they're bad up there. They're probably the worst I've ever experienced anywhere in North America. Totally crazy. So we did that, and then I did an entire series called Dark Coast, Hunt for the Alaskan Bigfoot, which was a 2-week trip to Area A, as it's been called, which was a direct follow-up to our videos from 2022, the Alaskan Coastal Sasquatch, parts 1 and 2, which was a 1-week expedition to this property in the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. And this Dark Coast series was a direct follow-up, and it was its own series, and it's a 5-part series. You can see that on our channel as well. And basically just exactly what it sounds. Here's our 2-week expedition, and each episode is broken up into a couple different days, and that's kind of how we chose to do it. So that was it was a bunch of Beyond the Trail films I did, and then this Dark Coast series while I was up there in Alaska for a month. So it was a spectacular journey. It was just a trip of a lifetime. Obviously, driving up to Alaska, just seeing everything along the way in parts of northern Canada. You see how much habitat is still out there. Pretty frightening. Absolutely crazy. Just how much space there still is out there. I don't think people really have any idea unless they've driven up that route. You could go off any part of that highway there and basically disappear forever. It's cutting through this really remote wilderness. So yeah, that was an amazing trip. But since Alaska, man, there's been a lot of stuff going on. I've been doing obviously other Beyond the Trail films, but I've also started an entire new series called Strange Places, which is primarily about just kind of what it sounds like. So that's a great picture. That's us visiting an anthracite coal mine in northeast Pennsylvania, which supposedly is haunted. We had some weird stuff happen in there, and I don't do ghost stuff. I'm not a ghost guy. We were doing a video just about the mines and the exploration of this abandoned mine with some guys who do this kind of exploration. We had a bunch of weird stuff happen in there, stuff getting moved around. Not stuff I'm really into. This may be something more up your alley, Barnaby, with the ghost stuff. And there's a story we ran into at a local jail there in Pennsylvania, where they hung a bunch of these Irish guys back in the 1800s, and supposedly one of them put his handprint up against the wall, and the handprint they've tried to clean it off and paint over it, and always comes back out. It's like a weird paranormal kind of urban legend. But so Strange Places covers a variety of these interesting, weird, abandoned locations, places with a weird history. My first episode was about the land between the lakes, which is obviously very well known for weird stories, Dogman, all that stuff. And whether you believe in any of that stuff or not is not really the point. It's still an area that people report strange stories. So that's the kind of approach I take. I'm pretty skeptical of the Dogman stuff myself, but I want to understand why is it that these stories are originating from this place. So we did a kind of full in-depth coverage of the land of the LBL, how it became what it is, the government stuff, the weird crime elements. I learned about a vampire cult while I was there. There were these people LARPing as vampires that, one of the leader, they used to worship at an abandoned property in the LBL. And one of the guys who was the main dude ends up going down to Florida and killing 2 people. And that was a big thing. So that's like whether you believe in Dogman or not, that's a real world incident where somebody mentally unfit or whatever thinks they're a 500-year-old reincarnated vampire, and they end up killing people. And there was a location I was taken to in the LBL called the Vampire Hotel, where they used to supposedly do their rituals or their role playing, whatever it was that they were doing. It was kind of a weird thing. So yeah, that's the approach I took. Was I'm not just focusing on one of the urban legend elements of the LBL. I focused on a lot of them and the history. Why is the place the way it is now? And then we've done abandoned fortresses in Louisiana along the Mississippi. I did an abandoned kind of a post-apocalyptic Pennsylvania. We went to abandoned turnpike highway tunnels, some other locations, and kind of covered it. What would the world be like after human beings? This is a weird kind of post-apocalyptic environment. And then this mine video is the most recent one that just came out. And we've got some really exciting new episodes of Strange Places coming up, including one about this abandoned Air Force radar base on top of a mountain in Vermont that is tangentially connected to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction from 1961, in which this base, which was a early warning radar base from the Cold War to detect Soviet missiles or craft incoming. I mean, this was the late 1950s, early 60s, so the height of the Cold War. And this base has multiple Project Blue Brick reports of unidentified flying objects or UFOs being recorded at the base. Well, one of them happens to be the same exact night as the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. So we're in Vermont. Neighboring New Hampshire is where the Betty and Barney Hill story, where they said it took place. And this base is maybe only 20, 30 miles northwest of where Betty and Barney Hill said this event happened in the mountains. And this base reported that same night an aircraft they tracked for about 18 minutes or an unidentified flying object. So that's a cool, we go and visit the base. It looks like something out of Star Wars. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. That's a cool episode. We've also got a really interesting episode coming up about the Brown Mountain Lights, very weird mystery phenomena down in North Carolina. We teamed up with Helmet Holler for that one. They have filmed some stuff down there before, and we did a really cool experiment, almost kind of trying to debunk certain elements of the Brown Mountain Lights and talk about the other elements. So those are 2 episodes that are upcoming that just have some really awesome kind of UFO, UAP sort of stuff going on in them. And there's just so many other cool ones coming, and I'm just super excited for all the other videos and things that are coming out.
Wow. I mean, you're as busy as I am, man. Like, there's so much stuff. Like I said at the beginning of the show, like, you guys are everywhere. I was looking through your YouTube stuff when I was pulling the links and that, and they're all over the place, all over the world too. Like you said, you know, you're world traveled and been to all these other locations and stuff, and that's amazing, man. That's good for you. Congratulations. That's
definitely keeps us busy, you know, and we'll be doing some stuff in the Pacific Northwest here in a little bit as well. So I can't really say a whole lot about it, but there's some very exciting stuff coming up. So stay tuned.
Awesome. So where all outside of the US have you been? Obviously Canada and the US.
So if it's specific like small town monster stuff, it's mostly been Canada and the US, obviously mostly the US, but I've traveled before previously. You know, I was born in South Africa. My family's originally from the Balkan region of Southeast Europe. So I've spent a lot of time over there. Who knows, maybe there'll be some strange episodes over in, you know, near Romania and Transylvania, vampire stuff. Who knows? We shall see. But so I've traveled quite a bit around the world. I've been to parts of Asia. I've been to South Korea. I've been to China just a little bit. And I actually have been to North Korea as well, which is a pretty wild trip I took about a decade ago. So yeah, I've traveled quite a bit around the world. And yeah, it's not all of it's been for cryptids or mystery stuff. It's just been other travel, but I've always been curious about very interesting kind of locations and places and history. I'm a huge history buff, so wherever I've traveled, I've looked into the local history or the weird legends and any of that kind of stuff that might be along the travel route, so to speak.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, this seems like a good place to take a quick break. We are live, guys, here. So if you guys have any questions or comments for Aleksandar about Small Town Monsters, the upcoming festival, or any of his work, please get them in the comments, and we will get to them right after this. We'll be right back, guys.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, and the metaphysical? How about Mothman, Bigfoot, and other cryptids? What about UFOs, UAPs, and other anomalous phenomenon? Then you need to check out Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We have all that and more. Watch our series, Cap's Road Trip, where we travel across the U.S. in search of these phenomena, and bring you not only the history of these locations, events, and encounters, but evidence that we capture along the way. Alongside our team of researchers and investigators, you never know who will be joining in on the investigations. Are you interested in Bigfoot in Upper Michigan? Check out Finding Huyton, a series documenting the Sasquatch activity on a very special 80-acre property just outside of Menominee that has been a hotspot since 2012. Are you looking for something to listen to on your morning commute, road trip, or just hanging out? Head on over to our YouTube and check out one of our several podcasts hosted by members of the CAPS team. Topics and shows spanning everything from paranormal, UFOs, metaphysical, cryptids, and more. And if you're into spooky, check out our mini-series, Spirits of Menominee, which documents the paranormal activity of downtown Menominee, Michigan, or Spirits of Macville, where we investigate one very active location. Head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button, and you won't miss a minute. We are back live here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby, and today we are joined by Aleksandar Petakov from Small Town Monsters. He is a documentary filmmaker and is very well traveled in all kinds of strange places and Bigfoot and lake monsters and stuff. And if you guys have any questions, get them in the comments section and we'll get to them as soon as we can. First off, I want to thank Jennifer for her donation here. It's awesome. Thank you so much for being a Super Chats member and all that we do here. We can't do it without you. So thank you so much for that. She also has a question for you. So let's get to that here. Do you think you might consider doing a longer term assignment in Area X one day similar to what you did in Alaska?
It's a good question. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm just getting over being sick here over the last week. So I'm still a little congested. That's a good question. I would like to, but I don't know if that's going to be possible. I know quite a few former members of the NAWAC, and I've heard a lot of stories about that area. I've never been. Seth has been for a previous documentary on the Trail of Bigfoot back in 2019. He went down there. They had some interesting stuff happen. I don't know. I haven't really inquired into it. I have never been down to that area. It'd be really cool to do something like that, but yeah, the Alaska one, obviously it was a kind of a special circumstance. I had the chance to go there and knowing the owner of that property. But I'm sure something like that could be possible with Area X, but I don't know. I've heard in the last few years, activities waned a little bit. There's been more kind of development in the area, but I'm not entirely sure. It's something, again, I'd have to look into. I have no immediate plans for it, at least, I should say. But that would be really cool. It's something I've been hoping to kind of do. Very cool.
Awesome. Carrie Nelson says, looking forward to the new episodes. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Lee says that your base was part of the DEW line, Detection Early Warning. When she was part of the United States Air Force, she was part of all that, flying in AWACS, Airborne Warning and Control System.
Wow. Yeah. From what I understand, well, with this particular base, it changed names a few times. It was really only in operation from about the mid-1950s. I think it was decommissioned in 1963, and it's basically been abandoned since then. At the time, they were trying to fit a new radar system into the old existing base, and then it turns out that the technology became obsolete, and it was very hard to staff that base. I mean, to put it in perspective, this is literally in the middle of the most remote part of Vermont. You're only 20 or so miles maybe from the Canadian border. There's nothing but wilderness out there. And when we went out to the base, we found moose scat everywhere, just evidence of wildlife, because this is a place that's basically been subject to the wilderness of Vermont for the last 60-something years. So yeah, it was interesting, but again, that the technology there was only in use for a little while, but because of its remoteness and everything, they had a great position to kind of see if there was anything coming over or any kind of planes or stars. So that's why they had actually quite a few reports on with Project Blue Book, which was kind of the government's official examination into UFO phenomena. Obviously kind of controversial, but that was just their official documentation. So the whole story is that there was official documentation that there were unidentified flying objects seen there. Now, what were they? We don't know, but that's part of the interesting part of that story. But the base, absolutely amazing. I mean, visually, one of the coolest places I've ever seen. Picture being on top of a 3,000-foot mountain, and you have 360 panoramic views into Canada, into New Hampshire and the White Mountains. and you have these hulking husks of these radar towers, just 5 or 6 of them up on the top of this mountain. I mean, it really looks like something out of Star Wars, secret rebel base, or something out of Fallout. I mean, it's unbelievable. Just the drone footage and everything else that we got there alone, I'm so excited to share. Plus, again, there's that connection, maybe only tangential, to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. But what are the chances that this military installation records an official documented sighting of some kind of unidentified flying object the same exact night that Betty and Barney Hill claim that they had some kind of an incident happen? Whether or not you believe in the incident or what happened to them, I don't think they coordinated that. It's, this couple just driving home from Canada, I don't think they coordinated to conspire with a military installation that was probably kept top secret, that very few people knew about other than the ones who were deployed there, who lived in the area. That's a very interesting coincidence. Could just be a coincidence, but as we know, coincidences often work in very strange ways. So yeah, I'm really excited about that story. It's going to cover a little bit of the Betty and Barney Hill story, but focusing on our journey to the base. We actually had to do a 20-mile round trip hike to get there. So it was pretty intense, and we camped out on one of the radar towers, and you have this incredible star view. I mean, it's out of this world, literally. I mean, that's just what it looked like. I wish I had a picture or something I could share on here, but something just unbelievable.
Wow, that sounds amazing. When does that come out? You said it wasn't out yet.
No, that's something I'm currently still working on. So right now I'm sort of alternating between some of the Beyond the Trail type stuff and then Strange Places. So we have actually this next weekend, we have a new Beyond the Trail coming out, which is going to be called Behind the Trail. And it's actually a really cool episode. I'm just finishing that up. It's a kind of behind the scenes look at Beyond the Trail. So we're examining episodes going back to 2021. Not really a director's commentary, but I'm going to be watching the clips, pausing them, and sharing stories, stuff that doesn't make the cut, or behind the scenes circumstances, like we talk about the Alaska Highway in it. Some of the stories I shared to you, stuff like that, we kind of discuss in the background, which is really fun. So yeah, that's going to be coming soon. And then I believe this thing about the base will be happening probably in July, I want to say, is when it's going to come out. I'm not exactly entirely sure, but yeah.
So when you guys go out there and film, you talked about, getting the drone footage and stuff like that. How many people do you take for your specific filming and stuff? How many people are out there?
So it depends. I mean, usually with some of my stuff, I'm either doing it solo or it's just myself and maybe a couple other people. It just depends on the crew size. Like for this specific journey to this base, we had 4 of us, my brother, and then a couple buddies of mine, a guy named Brian Garvey, who's a good friend of mine. He's actually been in quite a few of the Beyond the Trail videos. He's a fellow hiker and New England guy, so he's been in a lot of my videos. He's a guy that I go on a lot of adventures with. And the other guy we had with us was another YouTuber named Eric Swanson. He's got a channel, pretty big channel, and he just does documentaries about a variety of stuff. So it was like this motley crew of 4 going on this incredible journey. And I actually have, I don't know if I can share my screen or not. I have a picture from the base. Let's see if you want to just, you might be able to share that, and I can just show you. So there's the picture. That was, so I mean, you just see how crazy that is, right?
Oh my gosh.
That is a drone shot of us, and you can see us standing on one of the largest towers. That's the top tower, I believe. There were, again, you can see some of the other ones in the background, but let me see if I can also share. Maybe I should have just opened both, but let me,
I'll pull it back down.
Sharing. Yeah, let me just pull the other one up because I had a second photo I can share.
Is that water down there on the coast too? Or are you right on the water line there, it looked like?
Nope. You see this one. I don't know if that one will come up. So yeah, that's a distant shot. So yeah, this is in the middle of nowhere, totally landlocked. Vermont is actually a landlocked state. So we're right here, that's probably looking into Canada at that point. To the other direction would be New Hampshire and Franconia Notch, which is where Betty and Barney Hill reported their abduction incident take place. And you can see the notch. It's like a little kind of valley between these 2 mountains. And you can see it from the towers in the base. You can literally see the notch. And that's where the Betty and Barney Hill thing happened. So yeah, you can just see how visually interesting this place looks. And we were there, it's like I said, we camped on that far left tower. You can kind of see it off to the side there. A lot of the towers were sort of in sketchy condition, rusting. I mean, they've been there for so many decades and 60 plus years at this point. So some of the other towers we didn't even want to climb into. But the two that were sort of safe were this top one, because there's a big metal kind of really hardcore staircase getting up there. And then that second one right there, that's the one we camped up. Those are the only two that were really structurally sound. And there is one there, another one there, and there's actually one in the shadow here. You can't really see it, but it's behind the shadow of the big one. So there were 3 small towers. So these towers would have been where they would have had a white big bubble around each of the towers, and that's where the radar unit was inside, and it would spin around and have an operator. Obviously, that kind of white material has been taken off a long time ago, but it's just a really cool place to explore. So it's got a little bit of an element of a UFO kind of story to it. It's got the urban exploration aspect of visiting an abandoned location like this in the wilderness. So it's going to be a really fun episode. It's probably one of my top 10 locations I've ever visited, just because of the history, the location. I mean, the views up there are just absolutely unbelievable. It's not often you find something like this, just a military base in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in one of the most scenic areas of the Northeast. So it's a tough place to kind of be.
So how did you find out about that? Like, if it's so remote and stuff, where did you hear about it?
So it's actually been pretty well known. It's not like it's a secret or anything. This base has been, from what I understand, the story goes that it's been abandoned since the 60s, and then a private civilian bought it from the government. They were selling it off because they'd taken all basically the useful stuff out, and it was just really the buildings. And there was that base, which is the actual radar station. And then at the bottom of the mountain, there was the barracks and where the guys lived. There was about 170 something people stationed there. There was even supposedly a bowling alley there. There was a mess hall. Those buildings are in really poor shape. And unfortunately, due to vandalism, people try to burn some of the buildings down. There's a lot of graffiti. People go there and shoot it up. The base is in very poor condition in general, just because there's been so much vandalism over the years. But it's been in private hands basically since it was sold to the government. And a lot of the land around there is owned by logging companies. So there's just really nothing back there. There's a ton of moose, ton of bear, ton of wildlife. I'm sure there's probably even some Bigfoot stories in the local community. I know there's a few reports in that area, not necessarily right near the base, but why not? I mean, it's just complete remote wilderness around there, and there's wildlife refuges as well. So I don't see why not. But yeah, it's just one of those locations. It's tough to find anything that really compares to that. So I had heard about it for years, and I'd been trying to go up there, and I never did it. I mean, as you see, I'm so busy. So I finally went there. This was about a month ago, back in May. We finally decided to go and do the journey. I've heard rumors that they might be tearing it down at some point, that they might, some of the towers are such a hazard, they might start tearing down the towers. I don't know. So I said, you know what? I need to get up there and document this, because this is a piece of history that's not going to be there very much longer. I mean, maybe those towers could last another 100 years, and I can only imagine the state they'll be in then if over 60 years they were deteriorated so bad. But none of this stuff lasts forever. So if you get the chance to see something like this, definitely do it sooner rather than later.
You said they might be tearing it down. You said it was also like a 20-mile hike in there. So how do you think that they go about that? There's no roads to it or anything, is there?
So that's the thing. There actually is a road to it, and you used to be able to drive right in, but they've put in barricades since then. They don't want people driving in. In previous years, I've seen people drive all the way up to the base, in videos and stuff like that. The time we went, they had barricaded it. People got stuck in the winter. There's a lot of people tried to go up there for the eclipse and watch, because Vermont was 100% within where the eclipse was passing through. So people went up there. I'd actually talked to a guy who went and saw the eclipse up there, and he said it was incredible, absolutely surreal. What a place. And they had to hike in the whole way. So yeah, we basically had to hike, and it was just a road hike the entire time. You're just hiking on the road with your gear. And then it's really funny because it's all dirt road to get out there. And then there's a paved road that goes from the lower base up to the top of the mountain. I mean, this pavement has not broken in over 60 years. I'm like, what kind of pavement did they use? They ought to tell some of the states up here in the Northeast, like Massachusetts, hey, your roads, they kind of suck. Why aren't you using whatever space tar, whatever it is they were using at this base. It survived 60 years with no maintenance, and it was in better condition than some of the roads I drive on regularly visiting other states. Really funny, but yeah, so it was very surreal. It was actually kind of painful, especially on the way back. I mean, we're hiking up with all our gear, and you're used to hiking in the woods on the grass or dirt or rock, and this time you're hitting pavement the whole time. So it actually ends up hurting your feet a little bit towards the end because you're going a couple miles down this paved road. But yeah, it was very, very weird, surreal kind of place, but obviously awesome to visit and awesome to see. And, for us, it was just a great adventure to do that whole hike and know that we're the only people that are really going to have access to it for that time period.
It sounds amazing. Can't wait to see the documentary when it comes out.
Super excited for that too.
Very cool. We have a comment here switching gears here back to Area X and Area A and all that. Charlotte J says Area X now has other cabins in the area and an ATV trail. Plus, they have started cutting down some of the trees. Interesting.
That's what I've heard as well. Again, I know quite a few people that are members or former members, and yeah, I've heard it's kind of been a little bit of that dealing with people encroachment, like in so many places. Just encroachment. So yeah, it's someplace I wish I'd visited sooner, but I still wouldn't turn down the chance.
Absolutely. Tate Hieronymus here says, good God, Lord, this Alex guy is everywhere.
So is this Tate guy, he's all following me all over the place. No, just kidding. Good to see you, Tate.
Awesome, man. So I wanted to ask you back to the Area X, Area A situation and stuff like that. You got to spend quite a bit of time out researching in Alaska and being out there. Where else have you gotten to spend a lot of time? Do you do research in your home state when you're there, if you're ever home, for more than 5 minutes? Do you do any research there, like long duration or anything, or where else have you gotten the chance to actually sit down and spend some time?
Yeah, definitely up here in New Hampshire where I live. Prior to doing any Beyond the Trail stuff, from about like 2015 or so, I started doing research locally. Before then, I was more of like an armchair kind of researcher, and I started doing films about. Sorry, I accidentally hit the keyboard on my other computer, and I've got a video, that I'm editing, so it must have started playing. Sorry about that.
Sneak previews. Pan the camera a little bit, would you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the screen's off, but the video, it's still on, so might be able to hear some stuff. But so like I said, here locally, I just started going out with local researchers, people like Squatchachusetts, Jonathan Wilk, and some of those guys, other people in the New England area, and I really kind of fell in love with getting out in the field and doing some of that research. So I had an area that I've been neglecting it for a while. Being so busy and traveling elsewhere when I'm home, I try to do some research, but it's not really something, unfortunately, that's high on my priority list with everything else going on. I'm kind of riding the wave, being able to enjoy going to so many different cool places. But there was an area in particular that I started researching for a number of years, from about 2019 or so, up until a few years ago, where I was going very regularly. And actually during when kind of the whole lockdowns, everything started happening, at the time I was working in the Boston area, and I was commuting from southern New Hampshire. And when everything happened in early 2020, I basically was working from home. I had a lot more time that I wasn't losing 2 hours of commuting daily. So I would work from home, I'd pack my stuff up, and I'd go out to the woods to this spot almost every day. And it was in an area that I've had some wood knocks and other weird audio. And there's actually some interesting BFRO stuff that's happened there over the years. And there's a property owner and a house, closest geographical house to this area where I was experiencing stuff. And this guy had been reporting stuff for years going on out there, rocks getting thrown at the house, typical sort of kind of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, allegedly kind of stuff. So I really started focusing on that area. I mean, I was out there at least 2-3 times a week in the spring of 2020 and into the summer. And I focused on that area quite a bit. And I was putting out game cameras, but the game cameras were more because of the other animals. I was interested. I get the feeling that these things probably either avoid them or can hear them, sense them. I mean, I have so much video at this point of animals, lesser animals, moose and deer and bear reacting, coyotes being scared of my trail cameras, just reactions. So maybe there's a sense, but I was, just trying to document what other creatures were out there. I was doing audio, long duration kind of audio recorder stuff where I'd put them out for every once in a while for like a week or two at a time, and just checking out this area. We'd go out there. There's only about a handful of incidents where we had some really weird stuff happen. I was with my brother, I was with a friend, and we had some kind of stuff, stereotypical stuff happen, audio recordings and that sort of stuff. So that's an area I focused on quite a bit for a number of years. Again, I've been neglecting it over the past few years, past 2 to 3 years, unfortunately. But even before that spot, I would go up to northern New Hampshire, to the mountains quite a bit, work with a local researcher up there in an area very remote with a history of activity. And we would go up there and poke around. I mean, once a week I was driving up there back in like 2016. So yeah, locally is where I focused a lot in kind of my earlier days. And before I was doing a lot of the STM stuff, or even when I was doing, like I did the On the Trail of Champs series back in 2017. But I wasn't doing any of this kind of stuff full time. It was like a side project. So I was working, doing other stuff, doing my research, doing stuff like On the Trail of Champ, because that's where passion kind of was at. So yeah, New England locally, we did stuff up here in New Hampshire, a little bit in Vermont, a little bit into Maine, parts of like Western Massachusetts, but mostly northern New England. So Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and there's just so much great habitat up here. New Hampshire is the second most forested state in the U.S. after Maine, which is our neighbor. We've got Vermont, which has quite a bit of woods, and the Green Mountains, and then the Adirondacks in upstate New York, millions of acres. And right above all these northern states, you have Canada with millions upon millions of acres. So, I mean, somebody in the Midwest, Canada's not that far away, how much wilderness there is out there. And I'm assuming Ontario and that part's near you. We have Quebec, which is right above us, where it's just animals can pass through in the border quite a bit. So even in northern New Hampshire along the Canadian border, you have the stories of the wood devils and these kinds of stories locally that have been told for decades, well before the Bigfoot stuff was ever even a thing. And even the last decade is really when locally people have thought about, well, maybe Bigfoot could be in the Northeast. Before that, I've talked to people who had sightings 30, 40 years ago, and they maybe even if they were aware of Bigfoot, $6 million man, or they thought it was the Pacific Northwest. They describe what they're seeing basically as a Bigfoot, but they don't consider it a Bigfoot. They say it was some kind of weird Neanderthal creature or hairy man or something, really just the wood devil, because they thought, well, Bigfoot's not around here, but they're describing to a T what every other description is like, but culturally it was not a thing here. You have, again, these stories that go back even to colonial days of wild men and hairy men. But it wasn't until the modern sort of Bigfoot craze, Bigfoot Sasquatch in the 50s and 60s that, you have that name. And then again, like when I first got into it a decade ago, I was still talking to people here locally in New Hampshire. It's very tough to get them to share their stories, and especially people that, have like a reputation. They don't want to be associated with it. They'll tell you their story secretly and then don't want you to publicly post their name or anything. Why are they making this story up then? If they only have something to lose, why would they make such a story up? And then it's like pulling teeth to get them to share the story. And they finally trust you. And then they share their story. And, it's something that I've got upwards of 50 reports here from New Hampshire that I took in my time while I was kind of really focusing on the Northeast. And a lot of them, I would never even think about posting the person's identity or anything. And I've even gotten a few anonymous sightings, which are tougher to vet, because they are anonymous. But some of the ones I have, people that I met physically at like a library talk, like you said you're doing a library talk. I'm doing a couple. I don't do a lot of them. I used to do a few more, and I got some really great local sightings because people that maybe were uncomfortable with sharing this story, maybe they've been ridiculed before. They see, oh my God, my local library is having a talk. Let me go share that story. And then they kind of like at the end, they're looking around. They're like, hey, so this is what happened to me. And then I get them to fill out a paper, and I have that in my files. But again, it's something I would never even think about, betraying that trust of, hey, please don't ever put this publicly. I want you to have the data, but that's it. So that's kind of the balancing game you have to play. But to kind of go back to your original question, that's really the area that I focused on heavily. And I hope in the future to focus on the Northeast here again. But it's, you get the chance to go to a place like Alaska or California or all these other locations. Obviously, I'm going to take those kind of bucket list destinations and do research in those areas. And, in some ways, I guess I'm neglecting my local stuff, but that's really where I started with my investigations and my filmmaking was locally.
Very cool. So do you have any like Native American stuff up there? Do you have any tribes or anything that you've been able to talk to? Have they had a lot of sightings or stories up in that area?
So yes and no. No, because a lot of the tribes out here were some of the first that were kind of wiped out back in the day. So northern New England, the whole East Coast, obviously these were the areas of the 13 colonies, the original settlement of the English. So there was a lot, the French and Indian Wars, right? That was like all throughout where I live here was taking place between Canada and the British and the French and everything. So a lot of those tribes, unfortunately, were wiped out, but there still are some remnants. I mean, parts of upstate New York, you got the Iroquois, the Mohawk, kind of that Iroquois Confederacy. New England, it wasn't necessarily the Iroquois or the Mohawk. It was actually the Abenaki. They're an Algonquin group. And so they were kind of more loosely banded than, say, the Iroquois over in New York and into Pennsylvania. The Abenakis had typically smaller populations. They're more spread out, and they had different bands that lived in different areas. So in Vermont and in New Hampshire, what's now modern day Vermont, a lot of the names, actually, the namesakes for places here in New England come from a lot of the Abenaki stuff. You've got Lake Winnipesaukee, that comes from that. Town of Nashua, which means clear river. I mean, you've got a lot of different names. I mean, I could list so many off the top of my head, but you had those groups down in Massachusetts. You had the Wampanoag, like you talk about the Bridgewater Triangle story, that's kind of there. And you have even down into Connecticut, the Mashpee, they have the casinos down there, some of the largest casinos in the U.S. That's still actually a reservation now, but they have the casinos on there, like Mohegan Sun, that sort of stuff. But here in New Hampshire, yeah, there was the Abenaki, and I actually used to work with a guy that I knew, who's one of the ones I was telling you I used to go up every week to the mountains. About a decade ago, guy named Michael Eastman, who I did some films on my old YouTube channel, Sasquatch Out of the Shadows. If you go back to like 2016 or so, find a documentary called Shy Man of the White Mountains. And Michael comes from that background, the Abenaki, and he's one of the few people trying to understand the language and try to speak it as well. There's very few people who still speak those languages fluently. But he approached the Sasquatch topic from more of a Abenaki kind of perspective, and he says, treating it like that, using the idea of gifting, or not gifting, but presenting a kind of tribute when you go into someone's territory. That's something that used to be done back in the day, a lot of these tribes and these First Nations. So if you want to see that, that's again a documentary called Shy Man of the White Mountains. It kind of maybe approaches from that perspective. But other than that, I haven't talked to a lot of people up in this region because again, it's unfortunately a lot of that culture has been lost. There are groups up into Maine. There's also a few tribes that have sort of their own areas and things, but it's not something I've really had the chance to do as much here, other than some of my previous experiences. But other parts of the country, I've worked with some tribes, and even in Canada, I did a whole film about visiting the coastal regions of Bridgewater Triangle, or not Bridgewater Triangle. I saw one of the comments there. Oh man. British Columbia, Bridgewater Triangle. They're two very separate things. But I did a whole documentary called The Valley of the Hairy Giants, which was based on my travels last year to a remote mountain valley on the British Columbia coast in those beautiful temperate rainforests called Bella Coola. And that's the traditional lands of the Newhalk people. And they have some very interesting folklore going back tens of thousands of years regarding what they call Sninick and other kind of hairy man-like creatures that are very crucial to their folklore. I mean, they even took me to a petroglyph site that was like 14,000 years old, where they had all these little drawings on the rocks and inscriptions. And one of them looked like, as they called it, a little ET head, almost looked like a little alien head. And they said that was actually the cosmic Sninick. So this kind of cosmic Sasquatch creature. And they say that's where the world came from. The world was born from this being. So in their worldview, the entire world came from this kind of Sninick-like creature, which is very interesting. So it was really important for me when I talk to people like that, to have them share their stories, not just me going there and trying to interpret what it is and give my views. I mean, yeah, I'd give my views on just, hey, this place looks like a cool habitat. I can have these beautiful mountains. I could see Sasquatch being out here, but it wasn't my place to speak about their culture. I mean, anywhere you go, you're not going to and that's the case whether it's with Native American kind of stuff, First Nations, or other groups of people. I go to Louisiana, talk to a bunch of dudes, the Cajuns down there, looking into stuff like Rougarou or Honey Island Swamp Monster. I'm not going to go there and assume I know their folklore and stories. No, I want to hear from them. So that's the kind of approach I take wherever I go, whichever part of the world I'm in. I want to learn. I want to hear their stories, and I want to portray them accurately and have them tell their stories, which is what's really cool about doing some of those sit-down interviews and having people just tell their stories the way they were told growing up, how it went, or this is what the elders taught us. This is what my grandfather who used to hunt these woods told us, and that kind of stuff. So that's been really cool, sharing that from a very kind of human level. And that's a big part of kind of what I like to do with some of the beyond the trail type stuff.
Very cool. That's awesome. You got so much stuff out there, so many things. Quick question here for you. How many more episodes of Strange Places will we be seeing? The LBL episode has been one of their favorites. That's from Julie Brown.
Very cool. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch more. I mean, I know at least for the time being, there's 4 or 5 in the works. So we've got, of ones that I've filmed about 4 so far. There will be a 5th one soon, which may take place in the Pacific Northwest. Who knows? But the 4 so far that are upcoming is the one we've talked about heavily, which is this radar-based connection with the Betty and Barney Hill UFO story. Very UFO heavy. We've got the Brown Mountain Lights investigation with interviews with Joe and Jesse of Hellbent Holler, as well as Micah Hanks, who's just a phenomenal researcher of the UAPs and anything anomalous. We've got one about some kind of caves down south in the southern Appalachians, mystery, weird stuff. That'll be really cool. And then we've got one about be part of the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. One of the guys that works with Small Town Monsters, a guy named Tyler Hall. He's one of our more recent kind of crew members. I've known him for a long time, even before he was with STM, but he lives in the Shenandoah area near Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. And recently, when I was coming back from the Carolinas, I spent a couple of days with Tyler, and we went to some very weird locations, abandoned mausoleums in the middle of the woods, connected with weird, murders and stuff that happened, and secret caves, and just kind of a bunch of weird stories, ancient Native American fish traps that we found. I mean, all kinds of really cool stuff. So it's sort of going to be a weird Virginia sort of thing. So there's at least those 4 episodes that have been filmed, and there will be more being filmed soon. Again, one of them take place in the Pacific Northwest, but I won't share exactly too much more about it, but it may have some Bigfoot connections to it. So we'll leave it at that. It might be pretty cool. So, and I should say there's not only that, but there's other Beyond the Trail stuff coming as well, and some super exciting Beyond the Trail locations, very historic, that I think are going to just be really awesome for people to see.
Wow. So you seem like you have new episodes coming out like at least every 2 weeks or at least once a month, right?
Yeah, for me personally, I think, I don't know exactly because our schedule is kind of changing a little bit now, but usually I have about a video or so a month, and that depends. It's been a bunch of Strange Places lately, but Beyond the Trail as well. But we're starting, usually what we do on Small Town Monsters channel is we have weekly releases on Sundays. Now we're starting to release videos on Wednesdays as well. So there's going to be new series coming up. We've got a new series coming up with Joe and Ron from Wild and Weird West Virginia. I don't exactly know I don't remember the title, but I think it's Examining the Paranormal. Don't quote me on that, sorry. But it's a really cool series. Like it hasn't really officially even been, it's been kind of teased, but not officially announced. We've got a whole new series from them. We've got people like I mentioned, this guy Tyler, he's got stuff coming out soon. I do videos. Obviously, we have Seth and all the other crew doing a variety of projects, Bigfoot and otherwise. So we're starting to expand how much we're putting out there. So, but for me, for the time being, we have some Beyond the Trail stuff and Strange Places, and it's kind of alternating. So actually this coming Wednesday, if you're watching this live now, Wednesday the 19th, we're doing a marathon of Beyond the Trail, which is just going to be like a 9-hour live stream with a bunch of episodes from all the years we've done it. And it's just kind of going to be going on the channel. And that'll kind of be an intro to the upcoming episode, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a behind the trail, where it's like a behind the scenes look and some commentary, me watching clips from various episodes and saying, hey, this is kind of some backstory about what happened here and whatnot. So that'll be a fun one. That's the video I'm working on in the background that I was accidentally playing earlier. But yeah, so there's just as you can see, there's a ton going on. That's just on the YouTube side. We've obviously got films and other locations, and a lot of this YouTube stuff, these videos are not necessarily solely for YouTube. They're actually going on other platforms as well. So you might see them on Tubi, other streaming networks as well. So there's definitely some cool stuff on that. So, even if you're not on YouTube, you can watch it probably elsewhere coming very soon. And we're going to be launching our own sort of streaming smart channel as well called Unexplained TV, which will be a lot of fun.
I was just going to say, and you have a new streaming platform as well coming out. So much stuff coming out.
It's going to be so basically it's like a smart channel where, you can go on and it's going to be all Small Town Monsters programming. So you tune in one day, it might be a Bigfoot day. Another day might be a UFO day. So we could basically do whatever we want with that kind of format. So that's something that is in the works as we speak. So yeah, you have multiple ways of watching stuff in multiple places. And I just want to say as myself, as a filmmaker, how amazing and of an opportunity that is, because, you have the chance to really just create your own kind of videos, and there's not a narrative or anything I have to push. It's really just my honest investigations into a variety of stuff, whether it's Bigfoot or not. Here's my take, and I don't have somebody kind of sitting on my shoulder and telling me, hey, you need to change this or do that. It's very refreshing. So super awesome, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, going strong and hoping to keep it that way in general with STM.
Very cool. You guys are awesome. I love having you guys on, and so much cool stuff. You guys have, again, a very big event coming up here. If you guys want to meet all the Small Town Monsters guys, they'll be out there, as long as a lot of other cool people.
All these awesome guests. Exactly.
Oh man. Coming up June 28th and 29th. The big event is on the 29th, Canton, Ohio. Something for everybody out there, guys. So if you're out in the Ohio area, or you can make it out there, make sure you go out and check this out. Last year was the first event. It was an amazing time. Myself and Ma from the Caps team were out there, and we had a blast. It was really fun. Can't make it out this year, though, unfortunately. So maybe next year. But awesome. So very cool. And we got, as I said, we have all your social links, your website, and all of the Beyond the Trail playlist. If you guys are interested, check the show notes. It is down there. If you're listening to this on the podcast, and as well as the Strange Places podcast, Strange Places playlist. There we go. That is down in the show notes as well. So you guys can check that out if you want a direct link. So awesome. Alex, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on again. You are a blast. You have so much great information and so many cool things, and I look forward to catching up with you again, and hopefully seeing you again in person real soon. Definitely. Thank you, man, for having me on. It's been awesome to connect again. And, the Midwest is a little bit blank on my map. I haven't been out there a whole lot. I've only really driven through there. So who knows, maybe I'll have to make my way over there. I know you guys have a lot of weird stuff. I've heard you've got a lot of cool areas, especially in the northern parts, Minnesota and the UP and all that stuff. So maybe we'll have to get out there at some point. We'll definitely have to link up and do some investigating together. How does that sound? Oh, that'd be awesome, man. I definitely got some Bigfoots for you to chase beyond the trails. Let's do it for sure. Awesome. Can't wait, man. All right. Take care. Thank you again. And we'll see you later. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Small Town Monsters Monsterfest, as I said, is coming up June 28th and 29th in Canton, Ohio. All the Small Town Monsters guys are going to be there. They have Cursed Waters. The documentary is streaming there as well on the 28th. You guys can go check that out. Something for everyone, vendors, speakers, workshops. It's a great event. So unfortunate that we can't make it out there this year, but definitely looking forward to the next one. So awesome, guys. Coming up, let's see. What do we got? My screens are all messed up here. All right. Coming up, guys, this week on the Paranormal Spectrum, Christopher Noel joins us on the show. He has had some issues with scheduling and stuff, so this week is pre-recorded on the Paranormal Spectrum. He will be there live. It is recorded. It is in the books, ready to go. We will not have a scheduling issue this time, so it's awesome. He will be here on the show Thursday, 10 a.m. on the Untold Radio Network. And then coming up next week on Monsters on the Edge, guys, if you enjoyed the episode with Sarah Skiba a couple weeks ago here, we have another great guest here for you. She is Let me pull this up real quick here. She is Jennifer Stokel, and she is from the Dire Wolf Project. So this is really cool, guys. Anybody that's interested, you hear a lot of the stories about people believe that these dogmen or canine creatures might possibly be relic population of dire wolves. Well, we're going to find out coming up next Monday here live on the Untold Radio Network. She is coming here. They actually are working on breeding a animal that looks like what they presume the dire wolves are. They are not a wolf hybrid at all. They are a domesticated creature, but I will let her tell you all about that. That is coming up next Monday here on the Untold Radio Network, Monsters on the Edge, on Monday at noon. So make sure you guys come check that out. And until next time, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you share, subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you on the edge.